is likely that the invention of the wheel derived from the observation of trunks being rolled to move heavy cargo. The first wheels were massive and had bumpy axles, but those mechanisms were perfected over the years. The lubrication of the axles and the invention of the wheel with rims made them much more efficient. But the decisive factor was the use of animal drag vehicles like oxen, donkeys, and horses, making wheels even more popular. This new invention quickly revolutionized the way man could transport goods and people. And the wheel soon entered the battlefield. Chariots were systematically used as combat vehicle in ancient battles. Contrary to popular belief, the native people of the Americas were already knowledgeable of the wheel when the Europeans discovered the New World. However, it was barely used, as Native Americans did not have access to animals like the horse, for instance. Taking into consideration that limitation, these people opted for other means that they considered more efficient to transport their cargo. The impact of the wheel's invention altered many areas, not only transportation. The wheel was also used in several other mechanisms, which would be crucial to the evolution of mankind.
The printing press was developed in the 15th century, around the 1450s, by Gutenberg in Germany. The printing press had an enormous effect on our culture, on human culture, because it allowed knowledge and culture to be spread really quickly to a lot of people. So soon after the press was invented in the 1450s, it spread throughout Europe in 20-25 years.
The calendar we use right now is the Gregorian calendar, so named because it was implemented by Pope Gregory XIII in 1582. Now, why would the Pope be interested in the calendar? Well, Easter was traditionally supposed to fall on the Sunday after the first full moon after the spring equinox on March 21st, but it had started slipping later and later behind the solar event. And Gregory was worried that they were missing Christ's rebirth day by about 10 days, so he commissioned Italian scientist Aloysius Lilius to fix it and make sure they were on Jesus' good side. When they made the switch, the Catholic world jumped forward a full 10 days, and you thought daylight savings was bad. Many non-Catholic countries wouldn't adopt the Gregorian calendar for hundreds of years still. Russia switched after their October Revolution in 1917, which, under the new system, technically began in November. The reason the Gregorian calendar is more accurate with our solar cycle is because it changed how we approached leap years. It still has a leap year every 4 years, like the Julian calendar, except for years that are divisible by 100. Except for years that are divisible by 400. So 2000 was a leap year, but 2100 will not be. Why this wonky system for leap years, though? As it turns out, our revolution around the sun is not a perfect 365 days, but 365 days, 5 hours, 48 minutes, and 46 seconds. Before Julius Caesar became emperor, the calendar was all over the place, literally being manipulated by the Roman high priests for political reasons. Sometimes years were lengthened to keep allies in office, sometimes they were shortened to kick rivals out quicker. Julius Caesar put a stop to that by standardizing the Julian calendar. Introduced in 45 BCE, or what to the Romans was 709 as they counted years from the founding of the city of Rome, his calendar had 365 days every year with an extra day every 4. It still made the average year length 11 minutes and 14 seconds too long, but that wouldn't be evident until hundreds of years passed. To honor him for reforming the calendar, the Roman Senate changed the name of Caesar's birth month to July. They'd honor him again a year later by murdering him on the infamous Ides of March. I always wondered, if Caesar could change the calendar willy-nilly, why didn't he just get rid of March? Way to drop the ball, Caesar. The reason we're in year 2015, though, and not 2768 is because in 525, Christian monk Dionysius Exiguus determined that Jesus was born in the Roman year 753 and started counting over again from there. Because of him, we get terms like BC, for before Christ, and AD, which does not stand for after death, but actually Anno Domini, which in Latin means the year of our Lord. In the academic and scientific communities, we keep things neutral and welcoming to people of all faiths, so you'll often hear the terms BCE and CE for before Common Era and Common Era. Of course, the Gregorian calendar is far from the only calendar in use around the world today. Many calendars from cultures with less pronounced seasons actually rely on cycles of the moon instead of the sun. But for predicting the changes of seasons, equinoxes, solstices, and when certain constellations will be visible, the Gregorian calendar is the one we prefer for its regularity. At least until 4909, when it'll be a day ahead again.
Today, we're all used to just hitting a button and getting whatever you want and whatever typeface you want immediately.
The shift from newspapers to radio was barely anything when compared from the transition from radio to television. You can now finally see and hear people from parts of the world that you had never seen before. You were finally able to attach a look and a personality to the entertainment you were receiving. Almost immediately, the world became connected in a way that was never before imagined. TV changed the way we entertained ourselves and our families. However, the internet, as we know it, changed the world in ways that make the past 2,000 years of work and technological advancement look like baby steps. Take this for example. In 1860, the absolute fastest way you could get a piece of mail from one side of the country to the other was by horse. Riders could deliver a letter from St. Joseph, Missouri to Sacramento, California, over 2,000 miles away, in only 10 days. Take that time, double it, and you'll have your average time it would have taken to get a message across the country and back. Almost 3 weeks. Today, however, you could send hundreds of thousands of times that amount of information to someone in literally a second. More and more things are being connected to the internet. Sure, there's millions of new people each year who gain access to the internet, but things that used to be average items are now being connected to the internet. Every phone sold today has some sort of access to the internet. Smartwatches are now a thing. Refrigerators, for some reason, are able to connect to the internet. So are washers, and dryers, and blenders. It's like, do you really need an app for that? But regardless, it makes life easier in many ways.
Dark truth is that it's become very hard to find anyone, and certainly anything, more interesting than a smartphone. We love our phones and would never want to give them up, but we're all probably also gently aware that these delightful gadgets bear a hidden cost. To say that we are addicted to our phones is not merely to point out that we use them a lot, it signals a darker notion. That we use them to keep our own selves at bay. Because of our phones, we may find ourselves incapable of sitting alone in a room with our own thoughts floating freely in our heads, daring to wander into the past and the future, allowing ourselves to feel pain, desire, regret, and excitement. We are addicted to our phones not because we rely on them, but to the extent that we recruit them to a harmful project of self-avoidance. They don't mean to hurt us, but we may and probably do use them to injure ourselves. Addiction sounds horrible, but it's a hard name for a normal inclination, a habit of running away from the joys and terrors of self-knowledge. We can look up so much on our phones. We can, if we're inclined, check up the population of Lima, 8.73 million, who won the ladies' final at Wimbledon in 1997. Martina Hingis, the definition of tautology, saying the same thing twice, though in different ways. Or perhaps the author of that fascinating quote, "What you survive makes you stronger," Nietzsche. Yet this constant resource has an unwitting, unfortunate side effect. We consult our phones rather than ourselves. It's not that we actually know so many obscure facts, it's that we already possess, in scattered, unpolished forms, the raw material from which a huge number of the very best insights and ideas could be formed, if only we gave them enough time and attention. Almost since the beginning of time, we have prized the opportunity to get away from reminders of humanity and to immerse ourselves in nature. We've wanted to gaze on the grey indifference of the ocean or the bright, incalculable immensity of the starry sky. But our phones are the enemies of such experiences. They keep intruding our small selves into the picture. We might be on the edge of the Grand Canyon. They are beeping in our back pockets. We may be gazing at the southern slopes of the Matterhorn. They are receiving updates for a food delivery app back home. They ask us never to forget our ego and the endless things that ail us. Without meaning to, they strip away the help that the grandeur of nature can offer us. We constantly use our phones to keep track of our appointments, but we are, if we think about it, quite constrained around the things to which we choose to be alerted. There's the automated reminder of the session with a dentist, the alert to jog our memories that it's our parents' anniversary, or the text message to let us know we're due to play a tennis match on Sunday afternoon. But there are other, very different appointments we need to keep in mind. We need reminders to keep appointments with ourselves. We need to spend time with our own worries, to understand them rather than just suffer the anxiety they create. The grandest and much the worst is our final appointment with death. We don't know how many days we have left to count down, but what we need reminding of is not the day and the hour, but the fact. Ideally, we'd get a message every morning. Memento homo quia pulvis es, et in pulverem reverteris. Remember you are made of dust and will be dust again. Our phones seem amazingly sophisticated, small miracles of compressed practical science working hand in hand with advanced capitalism. We think so highly of them because we compare them to the past, rather than to the possibilities of the future. They are so much more advanced than any device we could have possessed 20 or 40 years ago. Yet our phones are almost unbearably primitive in comparison with what, ideally, the long future will bring. We are still so far from inventing the technology we really require for us to flourish. Capitalism has delivered only on the simplest of our needs. We can summon a street map of Lyon, but not a diagram of what our partner is really thinking and feeling. The phone will help us follow 15 news outlets, but not help us to know when we've spent more than enough time doing so. It emphatically refuses to distinguish between the most profound needs of our soul and a passing fancy. In the utopia, our phones will be wiser than we are. They will be kind and not merely subservient. They will know how to edge us away from a stupid decision and how to summon up our better natures. We deserve pity for having been born in such primitive times.